reminded of a quote from Adolf Hitler. All propaganda has to be popular and has to accommodate itself to the comprehension of the least intelligent of those whom it seeks to reach.
All right, folks, breaking news. Osama Bin Laden has been reported dead by all the mainstream media outlets. Of course, we know that this is a distraction from the truth of the matter. It's Bob Tuskin, BobTuskin.com, along with Shepard Ambellas of the IntelHub.com and PopeyFederalJack.com. We've been watching the live madness on May 1st, 2011, the birthday of the Illuminati, and at about 10:30 in the evening, all of a sudden all the channels came on saying that had some major update, and we thought maybe it was going to be Libya, and then they said it wasn't going to be Libya, and then of course they came out with the news, Osama Bin Laden is dead. Now, we wish we could report to you something like Larry Silverstein is dead or some sort of Rockefeller Rothschild scumbag, but instead, of course, in proper mainstream distraction, we have the boogeyman Osama Bin Laden back in the news, and this time not with a fake videotape. We'll start off with Shepard Ambellas getting his take on this live. Shepard Ambellas, the Intel Hub, what's your take?
Well, it's very interesting. It looks like some sort of psyop in the making. Obviously, we know Osama bin Laden has been dead for years. He was a CIA asset formerly, and right now they're reporting on CNN he was killed by the U.S. in a mansion outside of Islamabad. That's per CNN Live right now, but this is interesting as we're waiting Obama's announcement. What do you think, Popeye?
It's complete mind control. I mean, if they just kept saying over and over again, like the greatest form of mind control is repetition, and they just kept saying, Bin Laden is dead, Bin Laden is dead, Bin Laden is dead, even though Benazir Bhutto said it years ago that he was dead. And it's been, even the president of Pakistan, her husband, who took over after she was killed, said, Bin Laden is dead. And now they play the wild card on, of all days, May 1st, the birthday of the Bavarian Illuminati. I just find that highly suspect. Mm-hmm. It's a complete psyop from beginning to end.
A blood sacrifice day.
Sure, and we see past this at FederalJack.com, the IntelHub.com, BobTuskin.com. Folks, if you haven't heard by now, again, Osama Bin Laden's been reported as being dead. They actually got the body and the DNA, and they're all happy about this, and of course, we hope this means that the whole war on terror now is coming to an end, and that they'll no longer grope us at the airport, or no longer, warrantless wiretaps on our phone lines.
Well, unfortunately, the new boogeyman is probably Anwar al-Awlaki, who nonetheless dined at the Pentagon a while back. That's been reported by the AP and various other sources. I mean, the list goes on and on. But you know, I mean, going back to his CIA ties, Bin Laden's CIA roots, that's how all of these operatives work. And you know, for all we know, he could still be alive behind the scenes somewhere right now as an actual operative. I mean, he might have just retired from the CIA, as a matter of fact.
Well, as most of the viewers of this video know, this is a distraction, and we're not concerned with Osama bin Laden 10 years later after 9/11, where we have not had the truth exposed to the masses because the mainstream media and others continue to cover up one of the most serious events of our lifetimes. As people are still dying from breathing in the air on that dreadful day, we're still looking for the boogeyman, Osama bin Laden. So, at the very least, hopefully this will put an end to this, but I highly doubt it. Nonetheless, we'll continue to cover it with the greatest grain of salt, and you'll hopefully see through it as we do. A total psy-op. Bob Tuskin here with Federal Jack Popeye, along with Shepard Ambellas from the Intel Hub, and now joined with none other than James Evan Pilato, Media Monarchy. We're watching the footage live outside of the White House of people shooting off fireworks, and of course we see right through this staged propaganda campaign. James Fetzer reports on his Facebook that this was one of the most blatant acts of BS in our nation's history. A man who could so directly and badly lie in announcing the death of a man who died on or about 15 December 2001 could also directly and badly lie about his birth certificate. They are announcing that Osama was taken out by Obama. Now the wars can continue, the Predator drones can keep killing, and no one will care about where Barack was born. I think, like James Fetzer just mentioned in that piece there, that this is absolutely a distraction, taking us away from some of the real issues in regards to 9/11. And yes, he's been dead for quite some time. Let's talk a little bit more, though, about the PSYOP aspect of this. It's almost like they've paid actors to go out in front of the White House and celebrate. Let's start with Federal Jack. Popeye, what's your take?
Well, I mean, it's a complete psyop. You know, during, like I said to you, ever before you've ever seen any news footage ever, anything outside the White House, any protests, anti-war protests, 9/11 truth protests, whatever the case may be, they get within like 5 feet of the White House fence. They get beaten, tased, arrested. If they handcuff themselves to the fence, they get beaten, tased, arrested.
Yeah.
There's people lighting off fireworks. Now we're supposed to be at the highest, you know, or a threat condition level higher than we were, right? So all these military bases are on lockdown, right? We're all supposed to be worried about the false flag attack that's coming because they're going to blame it as retaliation for us killing Bin Laden, right? And yet these people can light off fireworks out in front of the White House.
It's crazy stuff. Yeah, and we are getting reports, folks, confirmed in Hawaii that the threat levels have been rose to high levels in military bases on lockdown and so much more. Let's get James Evan Pilato's take on this. You're just getting into the studio, James. From what you can tell, PSYOP, huh?
I would have to say so. Like I said, yeah, I'm a little behind. I only discovered all this about 20 minutes ago. I haven't seen any footage of pretty much anything, Obama's speech or any of it. But one thing I would have to say is that if we're watching these protests going on outside the White House, just as we're watching all this other news break, that it's important at a point like this to save our news and tape, you know, make sure you tape what's going on television and save PDFs of some of those articles. Because as we were kind of talking about off mic a few moments ago, could this be another situation of pulling the Saddam statue down in a staged move, or even the guys yelling for the recount in 2000, you find out they're operatives?
Yeah, it seems to me like this is absolutely staged. Shep, you've been covering the birther issue quite in-depthly. Is this a distraction from that?
Well, it very well could be. You know, one thing I've been checking into, I'm going to do a little bit deeper research on this, but the short form birth certificate that he released before, of course, saying that was the real birth certificate in the story, and then came out with the real birth certificate, which happens to be a fake birth certificate now. Health in Hawaii, it was changed as a law last year that the short form birth certificate would be the only recognizable form and the only form that would be dispersed from the state of Hawaii when a birth certificate is requested. So it's kind of funny now that there's court cases going on behind the scenes. Obama spent a lot of money on this issue, and now all of a sudden he releases the long form and then retracts the short form when the short form is the only one recognizable. It makes me wonder if it's some kind of dodge move for some kind of pending court case.
Mm-hmm. I personally think that both of these stories are a distraction, and we need to put an end to our Federal Reserve false flag terrorist-based Illuminati system. And on the birthday of the Illuminati, May 1st, 2011, Osama Bin Laden reported being dead once again. Bob Tuskin, BobTuskin.com, Federal Jack, FederalJack.com, along with Shepard Ambellas, the director of the Intel Hub, and our good friend James Evan Pilato with MediaMonarchy.com.
well, I hate to be a spoilsport, Matt, and rain on Obama's parade. Announcements like this are always strategically timed. But the important thing is Osama did not die on Sunday. There was no special forces assault on wherever he was claimed to have been. They didn't kill him on Sunday because he died in December, most likely at the end of 2001. David Ray Griffin wrote an important book, Osama Bin Laden, Dead or Alive.
Leader of Al-Qaeda.
Oh, he presented evidence in that book I think you could take into a courtroom and make a convincing case to convince a jury that Bin Laden was dead of natural causes in 2001. He was a very ill man. He was in a hospital. Dan Rabin, on September 10th, 2001, reported that Bin Laden was in a Rawalpindi, Pakistan hospital. Le Figaro wrote in July of 2001, he was in a Dubai hospital, and the CIA station chief visited him in his hospital room. Oh my goodness, what he was doing was visiting a U.S. asset, because Osama was a U.S. creation. We invented him. I mean, he's a real person, or he was a real person, but we invented him in the 1980s to use as a CIA asset, not an agent, but an asset against the Soviets in Afghanistan. And he remained an asset until he died.
It's not my contention that Osama bin Laden definitively has been dead for some time, but that his death has been announced a number of times at any rate. And I don't see why we should take this pronouncement any more seriously than any of the previous pronouncements, especially considering the complete and utter lack of evidence that has so far been produced to show that Osama bin Laden or anyone resembling that description was actually killed yesterday. But I think it's important to understand the announcement that occurred yesterday not through the lens of the announcement of the death of some terrorist mastermind so much as the retirement party for a known CIA asset along the lines of Lee Harvey Oswald back in November 1963. And I think Lee Harvey Oswald is probably the best analog for Osama bin Laden as someone who did not have the means, motive, or opportunity to do what he allegedly did, not only killing President Kennedy, but also waltzing in and out of the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War after having been working at the top secret Atsugi Air Force Base with no questions asked, using money that he didn't have at the time. In the same way, we see Osama bin Laden being the rogue element of the bin Laden family of construction fortune, who, of course, has deep ties to the oligarchy of Texas and, of course, the Bush family. So we see Osama bin Laden, of course, having deep ties to the American intelligence establishment. So I see this more as a ploy of the CIA getting rid of one of their old assets, whether he actually did die yesterday or he's been dead for years or whatever the case may be. This is simply discarding a war on terror boogeyman who's no longer scaring the populace.
Okay.
Well, yes, as an admitted CIA officer who commanded large brigades of mujahideen during the 1980s, during the Russian-Afghan war, he was a danger because the CIA basically is a private mercenary spy grid and enforcement grid of the private central banks. I mean, you showed earlier 4 of the number 1 main people the U.S. is after. All 4 of them were trained by the U.S. military, protected. Adam Gadon's granddad ran the ADL. He's known as, Adam the American. You had Anwar al-Awlaki, even the Pentagon admits, secretly hanging out with the Secretary of the Army while he's on the news as number 2 under bin Laden, running the underwear bombing, running the Fort Hood shooter. He's a double agent who runs the mentally ill patsies. I mean, I've interviewed the people that were on the plane with the underwear bomber from Amsterdam to Detroit. And they saw the U.S. government helping get the underwear bomber who looked drugged out of his mind on the plane. And I reported that a month and a half before the State Department came out and said, yes, we were ordered by an unnamed U.S. intelligence agency to get the underwear bomber on the plane. And that was in the Detroit Free Press. So the issue here is Osama bin Laden, according to 2 White House sources, and I'm on record with this, and another State Department source, and we have one of the names is public, in 2002, saying he died, he's frozen, literally frozen, and that he would be rolled out in the future at some date. Then Madeleine Albright in 2003 said, and so did Walter Cronkite and Mrs. Kerry, Heinz Kerry, said, yes, we've been told by intelligence they've got him. Bush may roll him out, but because they exposed that in the election, they didn't do it. I have been told directly by former Bush administration officials when he was in office here in Austin, many of them live here, that this was going on very high level. And one of the names is public of the former Deputy Secretary of State under Kissinger came on my radio show in April of 2002. The transcript of that is up on Infowars.com. And they had a photo that was fake that they showed us of him being dead, then said, oh, it was fake, sorry. They threw him in the ocean so nobody could see it. I mean, they may have thrown a ham sandwich in the Arabian Sea. I mean,
who is Osama Bin Laden? He's just a character created by America.
Well, actually, 98% of Pakistan would probably follow along the same line. They believe that Osama is basically a CIA agent who is working undercover to put a bad image of Islam.
Really? So that there is no Osama Bin Laden.
A lot of them find it difficult to believe that such Muslims could actually exist.
We could all drive an hour from where we are right now and find many, many people who stand by what Osama Bin Laden says in the spirit of Islam.
To be quite honest, that's a very marginalized section of Pakistani society. Islamic extremism that you find here did not really exist in Pakistan pre 9/11. Or pre the Musharraf government.
I opened the news and this says about Osama Bin Laden. I was shocked. And to be honest, I'm living here all my life. And you know that if somebody new comes in your street, in your area, you always know. Like somebody is, you can feel them, you can see the movement. I ever seen anything like that. I can't believe that.
You know, a lot of people in your neighborhood have said that they were suspicious about this house. Was there anything about this house that you found suspicious, that you found strange about?
To be honest, I always go in the evening, walk from my house to the same house where they said the Osama Bin Laden. The next house is my other house, which I rented to my cousin friend. And every day in the evening we went there by walk with my wife for just walking. I never seen anything like that, and that's why I can't believe that. And to be honest, it's not true. Osama, maybe some other people, but Osama is not the bird who went to the inside, because this is restricted area. When we came out from outside to come here, always army will say, oh, where's your ID card? So it's not belief.